Hello, and welcome to this video made in support of student success, where we will be discussing the concept of practice testing and how it can be used to improve students' assessment scores and boost their long-term retention of the concepts learned in school. The objectives of this video are to define the concept of practice testing, explore the benefits of implementing practice testing in your study routine, show various tools, including online resources to help you implement practice testing in your study routine, and spend time learning how to develop your skills in practice testing and identifying proper times for when to employ practice testing as a study strategy. What is practice testing? At first, the concept may seem obvious and familiar to you, since practice testing is typically embedded into an instructional routine. For example, have you ever had a teacher give you small quizzes before a full chapter test? Has a teacher ever encouraged you to make flashcards in order to study? Or have you ever played a review game in class? If you have engaged in any of these practices, these are all examples of practice testing that can be implemented at the individual level in order to boost your test scores. The aim of this video is to make sure you understand the science behind practice testing and know when and how to properly implement this strategy. The main strategy behind practice testing is to boost your long-term memory by having you practice the retrieval process. Simply put, when your brain learns new information, that information is inputted into your working, or what is more commonly known as your short-term memory. As you learn about a concept and your teacher explains it to you, it gets encoded and stored in your long-term memory. When you are tested or asked to recall certain information, your brain has to retrieve that concept from your long-term memory in order for you to be able to speak, write, or answer a question about that concept. For example, when you're taking a test, the information you've learned is stored in your brain. When you see a question related to what you've learned, your brain has to access that information from your long-term memory in order to answer the question. This process is called retrieval. The more you can practice retrieving the information you have learned, the faster and easier the retrieval process will go. Therefore, practicing the conditions of a test can help your test scores improve. What are the specific benefits of implementing practice testing into your study routine? More than 100 years of research has revealed that taking practice tests can substantially boost student learning and is one of the most effective study strategies. Practice testing can help students regardless of their age, and it can be applied to any and all learning materials. Practice testing also mimics the testing environment, so students are more prepared and confident when they go into their test. As the saying goes, practice makes perfect, so the more often you can practice testing yourself, the better you will do on the test. But practice testing does need to be implemented correctly in order for it to help improve your test scores. So how can you properly implement practice testing to help improve your study routine? Essentially, practice testing is asking yourself questions about the material you need to know and mimicking whatever format your test might take. Will your test require you to identify a correct definition via multiple choice? Or will you have to explain larger concepts via an essay? In an ideal world, your practice testing should follow the format of your test. In the multiple choice example, it may be most effective to test yourself via flashcards or practice multiple choice questions. In the essay example, it would be helpful to outline an essay answer without your notes in order to prepare. As you are practice testing, it is important to take notes of which concepts you are failing to remember quickly and correctly. Try pulling those concepts aside and isolating additional attention to practicing these concepts more. One of the main benefits of practice testing is figuring out what you don't know and what you need to study more. Additionally, you can assess what you already know well and dedicate your time and energy to focusing on more difficult concepts. Here are some resources and suggestions for how to implement practice testing in your study routine. One of the most popular and effective methods for practice testing is flashcards. The typical method for using flashcards is to write the term or concept you need to learn on one side of the flashcard and the definition or application on the back. Research suggests that leaving additional room on the flashcard in order to practice rewriting the definition can be an effective method for practice testing. There are many options for digital flashcards that may make practice testing a more easy and convenient strategy to implement rather than taking the time to write out your own flashcards. Although research suggests taking the time to write out a flashcard and how that can boost retention, it may not always be a feasible strategy. Websites like Quizlet, Brainscape, and Cram are all digital flashcard tools you can implement in order to test yourself on the concepts you need to study. Pre-made flashcard sets are available for students to search, or you can import definitions that you already have in a digital list to make them into flashcard form. Another suggestion for a way to implement practice testing in your study routine is to make your own study guide and test yourself on the information you've prepared for the guide. The act of making a study guide will force you to consider the key takeaways of the materials you need to know and allow you to anticipate potentially testable material. Once you made the study guide, cover up the important information and quiz yourself on the key concepts, making sure to take note of any concepts you miss on the first try. Research states that you should test yourself until you can recall all information at least once, but the more you can practice, the more efficient the retrieval process. Another way to implement practice testing into your study routine is to write your own practice multiple choice questions. This exercise will help you to anticipate potential questions that will be asked on a test and identify key concepts that are most likely to be covered on an assessment. Once the practice questions are written, you can also test yourself. Some great online tools to use for this are Kahoot or Quizizz, where you can write your own multiple choice questions and create a game to test yourself. You can also search their database of existing games to see if similar quizzes already exist in comparison to what you need to learn. Or you can study with a partner and quiz each other. This practice will force you to recall the information that you know about the material, and your partner can test your knowledge. Remember, when engaging in any of these practice testing methods, make sure your practice is focused on the key concepts that you anticipate will be on the test or quiz rather than superfluous details. Additionally, make sure to take note of the concepts that you get wrong or recall slowly and devote additional practice time to honing these concepts. Now, let's practice together. Consider the following scenario. You have a large end-of-the-year exam coming up. Maybe it's an AP or state test, or an end-of-course exam. You are overwhelmed by the sheer amount of studying you have to do before test day. Your test will include 100 multiple-choice questions that will span material from the entire course. Take a minute to pause the video and write down strategies that you would use to implement the various methods of practice testing in order to prepare for this exam. Great! As some preliminary ideas, you can make an outline of the key points of each major section of the course. You could review past test questions and make a Quizlet with flashcards of the key vocabulary from the course. There are many other ideas you could have implemented to prepare if you did not select the ones mentioned, but make sure the strategies relate to the key concepts of the course and allow you to practice arriving at the correct or incorrect answers. For a second scenario, consider you have a large essay exam where you will not know the prompt or topic of the essay beforehand. How can you implement practice testing in order to prepare for an essay test? Pause the video and write down your ideas. Awesome! One strategy could be to generate possible essay topics yourself and briefly outline what your answers would be, but there are lots of other possibilities as well. Practice testing is regarded as one of the most effective strategies for improving students' performance on tests and quizzes. Through watching this video, you have been introduced to the potential benefits of practice testing and have been exposed to tools and strategies to help improve your study routine. Practice these methods in your own studying and take note if you see an improvement in your scores and knowledge. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch, and we hope you have learned more about practice testing.